So what I'm going to talk about is these design patterns interviews that Mary and I have been doing with some help from the other investigators. Actually, Ken conducted one of these interviews for us. And they're ongoing, but primarily myself and my graduate students, and then Mary Flanagan, who's up at Dartmouth, and her graduate students. So basically, at the launch of the project, we didn't have this built into our plans, but we quickly realized that one of the things that particularly Mary and I, as people who've worked in design and also do research, thought was lacking in the area of games and learning research was some of the voices of people who may never publish in an academic journal, but who might have really amazing insights about how to actually build these things. People who may have built educational games out there in the commercial world, game designers who are masters at building tutorial levels in their games, people who are hybrid designers and researchers who might not label themselves as learning experts, but who would have a lot to say. So we decided we wanted to do some formative research where we would go out and we would interview these kinds of people and collect their insights and feed that into the process so that we weren't just doing a massive literature review of things that had gotten out into the published realm, but that we were also including these voices, including teachers and players, people who had insights about learning in games that we could then feed back into this big picture that Jan was just presenting to us. So our initial goals were, first of all, we were hoping to find some design patterns that we could actually incorporate into mini games, because part of the point of this 3-year first phase of the Institute is getting ourselves all the way towards building games. We also thought that in the process of doing these interviews, we could strengthen the community around games and learning. As both Ken and Jan have said, we are certainly not the first people to tackle the subject of games and learning. And we wanted to actually embrace that community and bring them into the project and in return provide a resource that would hopefully go out onto the internet. So the third initial idea was that we would actually start posting these clips. And there are a few on our website. There will be more coming shortly. So far, we've conducted a little over 40 interviews. We've done this in a range of venues. The Game Developers Association meeting locally in New York City. My grad students went there and interviewed a bunch of people while they were drinking. That was interesting. We did the bulk of our interviews actually at the Game Developers Conference, which happens every year in San Francisco. And Mary and I each brought a student out there, and we camped out for the whole week and videotaped people. And we got some amazing people to come and talk to us. It was really pretty cool. Ken did the same thing on site in Washington with a very well-known game developer out there. We also decided that since we weren't primarily concerned with having high quality television-ready video, but it's really a set of materials for us to analyze, that we could just as well use Skype. So we've actually been using a $15 video call recording piece of software with Skype, so you don't even have to be in the same location with us. We can just videotape you, and we can keep that for the record. It's been a mixture of designers, researchers, a few educators, and even a couple of players. We're actually going to interview our board member, Kaylin, while she's here in town. So we've been very opportunistic in that way. And we've had an emphasis as we went along. We realized that the kinds of people we found really helpful were people who had hybrid skills, who were maybe a researcher and also a designer. And in particular, it was really helpful to us to get people who had actually done design themselves to talk about their insights. So we leaned a little bit towards that side in who we tried to grab for our interviews. I'm not going to walk you through all these questions. What I can do is I can make the slides available to Jan to put up on the site. But if you're curious about what we ask people, this is the full set of questions. And of course, sometimes, depending on the person's background, we would meander off into some other topic. And certainly if someone got on a major, amazing role in describing something to us, they might not have gotten through all these questions. It was, as I said, formative research. It was not meant to be a massive, comparative, rigorous study, but rather an opportunity to gather some information from people who we might not otherwise hear from. So I'm just going to share with you a few of the interesting initial insights that we got from designers, things that actually in some ways confirm intuitions that we might have as researchers, sort of provide us with ammunition, if you will, for sticking to our guns about what we think is important or what not. One thing that we heard loud and clear from a lot of different designers is that they think that games are already learning engines without a question, without a doubt. They're very amazing and efficient at that. And they think that's part of the reason why the educational community has gotten really excited about them. So listening to them describe what it is about games that makes them such phenomenal learning engines and what they think games do well in teaching people how to play them was very helpful to us in understanding how that might transfer to other sorts of learning goals. Every single designer we talk to, one of the questions we asked is, what's a big no-no that you would never ever do? Every single one of them said, please, you have to make it fun no matter what. And Ken talked about that in his sort of overview of development, that quickly we realized if something's not engaging, it's simply not going to work. The designers underscored that over and over and over again, every single one of them. But what was more interesting was how they went into detail about exactly what makes a learning game fun. And I'm going to show you a clip about each of these principles, so you'll get to hear it in people's own words. And then the last thing that I found really amazing was they said, it's not just about content, it's not just about memorizing things and testing people, but they actually believe that games can even generate very deep moral and ethical questions for players, and that's something that they strive for in their own work. And that's stuff that we really want to unpack and feed into the design patterns that we try to take advantage of. Because what I heard them saying was essentially that this is a very deep medium that has the potential to involve people in a really exciting way, not just intellectually, but also emotionally and even morally, and that we can take advantage of that facility of games if we understand how to craft things that actually maximize it. So I want to begin by saying that this video it's very rough quality. The first two clips were taken at the Game Developers Conference in the midst of everybody milling about. I think you can still hear what these people have to say, but you should know that these people, we just grabbed them. We didn't perfume and powder them, and this is not meant to be that kind of video archive. Except for the third clip, which we accidentally got the Tisch School of the Arts. The guy who wrote the book on film lighting lit the third clip because he happened to be there. So, I mean, lucky for Warren Spector, he looks like $1 million bucks. But I just wanted to put that out there. Okay, so this first clip is Tracy Fullerton, who's an amazing, amazing game designer and also who's a chaired professor at University of Southern California who talked with us at GDC.